A few years ago, I read a travel article that Paraguay was the most landlocked country in the world. Okay? Probably true. And even if it, you know, but facts, I mean, don't mix me up with facts, right? I mean, if you tell me Paraguay is the most landlocked country in the world, I will believe you and I'll do something with it, because that sounds like a metaphor to me, a metaphor for something. And I didn't know what. So, you know, one of when you think of a poet, you sometimes think of somebody, I don't know what, in a toga, maybe wearing a laurel wreath, and, you know, kind of, you know, a woman in a gauzy gown is playing a harp, sort of slightly out of the poet's vision, or someone kind of flapping his wrists and skipping through a meadow or something like that. But a large part of any kind of writing is just sort of being a nerd and just running over to the library to look stuff up. And so I went over to the library at Florida State University and got out all the books on Paraguay. 2. I'm sure there must be like 6 or 8 by now, but there were only 2 then, which is, you know, kind of said, because you don't want to be too nerdy. So I read everything I could about Paraguay, and I realized that the more I read about it, it was that the country was being described the way a human is, that the country was sort of developing its own personality. So the name of this poem is, I Think I'm Going to Call My Wife Paraguay. I think I'm going to call my wife Paraguay, for she is truly bilingual, even though she speaks no Guarani and, except for cucaracha and taco, hardly any Spanish at all. She has 2 zones, though. One a forest luxuriant with orchids and the smell of fruit trees, where the Indians worship the pure and formless Tupang, who shines in the lightning and roars in the thunder, and the other a dry plain, a flat place with the soul of a mountain, motionless and hard as a rock. During the day, the sun blazes on the red dust of Paraguay as dark-eyed, straight-backed women walk home from the river with bundles of laundry on their heads, hoping to avoid trouble, for the Paraguayans are always fighting. Young conscripts lolling in faded cotton uniforms have no idea whether they will be summoned next to overthrow the government or defend it. My wife Paraguay and I ourselves had to fight the war of the Triple Alliance. Although in our case, it wasn't Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina. It was Harry, Edward, and Maurice, her former boyfriends. I won. War does not silence Paraguay or dismay her in any way. For still her people shout on the football fields and whisper declarations of love on the darkened patios of the old colonial houses, just as my wife Paraguay says she loves me as the paroquet and toucan fly over and the perfume of the lime and orange tree blow through the windows of our big house, which I call South America because it contains Paraguay and is shaped like a sweet potato.